I'm a 59-year-old male living in a major city in Ontario, Canada. I live in a small subdivision and have 5 neighbors total on my street. For the past few years, during the winter, when we were getting a lot of snow or bad storms, as I'm leaving for my overnight shift at around 8 or 9 pm, I'll put my wife's windshield wipers up on her car and do a quick walk around to my other 5 neighbors and put their windshield wipers up on their cars. Obviously not if they're outside or something, but if it looks like they're in for the night. Many of them forget to do this, as many of them have children and it typically slips their mind and their wipers will be frozen to their car in the morning. It's just something nice I like to do to look out for my neighbors, They're all always grateful for this and thank me for it. Many of them started to do it on their own, and there will be nights where I'll forget, and in the morning one of the neighbors has done it for us. Anyway, recently one of our neighbors moved out and a new family moved in as of last week. It's a young couple and their 2 children. The other night I was leaving for my overnight shift at around 9 pm. It was snowing really heavy and we were supposed to be getting about 30 centimeters of snow and it was freezing out. So I put my wife's wipers up and as per usual I walked around the neighborhood to do for my neighbors. I was hesitant when I reached my new neighbor's house as I've only introduced myself once, but did it anyway. As I was putting the second wiper up on their pickup truck, the husband came charging out of his front door, yelling, "Hey, what the F are you doing to my truck?" I tried to explain to him I was just putting his wipers up to help him. He continued to scream at me to get the hell off my property and don't touch my shit again. The wife then came out and started yelling at me too. I apologized and started walking away. Some of my other neighbors heard the commotion and came outside to see what was happening. They tried explaining to him too that it's just something we do. Both of them weren't gonna have any of it. Fast forward to this morning, I'm arriving home from my overnight shift and as I'm walking in, I see the wife of this couple struggling outside to break the ice off of the windshield wipers. Guess she was trying to take her kids to school and the wipers were frozen solid on the car. She sees me and yells over, "Hey there, do you mind giving me a hand please?" I look over to her and yell back, "No, sorry, thought I was never supposed to touch your shit again, ma'am," and walked back inside. She yelled back at me, "Wow, told my wife about this. She thinks I should have helped her because she was just trying to get her kids to school." I disagree, as I was just following what they told me. Over 15 years ago, my husband was a nurse technician at a private hospital in a small town in Brazil. At the hospital, there was a constant problem of food being stolen from the employees' fridge. There were constant complaints, but the administration would just ignore them. One day, my husband bought a pot of cream cheese, worth 2 reals, put it in the fridge, and when his break came, he saw it was missing. He went to HR to report the theft, and they told him that since it was not hospital property, there was nothing they could do. My husband just said, "Is that so?" turned around and left. He went to the phone and called the cops asking them to come because there was a theft. And he didn't tell them what was stolen. Now private hospitals in Brazil have a big thing about image. So when 2 cop cars arrived at the front of the hospital, everyone from patients, employees, HR, and even the top administration came to see what was going on. One of the cops that arrived ended being one of my husband's uncles, so he just went straight to ask him what had happened. My husband, with the most serious expression, just told him, loud enough for everyone to hear, that he wanted to make an official report that someone stole his 50-cent pot of cream cheese. There was a general silence before his uncle asked, "Are you serious?" If I knew this was about a 50-cent pot of cheese, we would not have come and would have told you to go to the station to make the report if you wanted. My husband just answered with a smile. "I know, that is why I did not say what was stolen, and now you could make the report." Which he did. Obviously, the police wouldn't do anything about it, but because of the whole circus that my husband created, The next week, the hospital installed a camera right in front of the employee's fridge, and the food theft finally stopped. So I have a friend Ted who 6 to 7 years ago was 64 and considering retirement. Ted worked in health analytics for a large metro health organization. He would look at patient data and see ways to improve patient outcomes and gain funding. Each month he would email to the relevant department heads data and links for government grants or funding applications. 12 months prior to this, Ted got a new boss, Sally, who didn't appreciate what Ted did. Sally pretty much ignored Ted except for a simple instruction that all data and reports go to her and no one else. She would deal with it. The organization eventually declares a restructure with lots of job losses. They are extremely determined to get this through. Ted is to become redundant. In a meeting, Sally tells Ted his work is useless and he is of no use to the organization. She says she hasn't opened one of his email reports in the past 12 months, and that clearly shows he doesn't matter to the organization. In 3 months, he will be redundant and receive a handsome package of over a year's pay. Sally was pretty rude to Ted and HR asked her to leave. It is decided that Sally will no longer deal with Ted. The union was putting up a decent fight and slowing down the restructure. Ted makes the offer to HR that he will not fight the redundancy if they pay him 3 months sick leave, and after that his redundancy can begin. They agree but insist that he does a full data clean for patient confidentiality reasons in the next 2 days, and then his sick leave will start. Ted backs up a copy that rings IT, who deletes every file all on his hard drive and not on a server. He was not so tech savvy, and physically destroys his hard drive. He also asks them to search through any unopened emails he had sent and delete them off the server. IT wipes every last trace of Ted from the system. Ted gave the copy of his data to the internal auditors on his last day. On Ted's last day, he also discovered that Sally didn't know he was going on sick leave the next day. She rings with a sweet as pie voice saying, "Hey Ted, I need to look at those numbers you sent me as I can't find them. The auditors say we are 2.2 million short of funding this year and you might be able to help out." Ted replies, "Sure, but ring me tomorrow." Ted leaves and retires happily ever after. Sally apparently could not find Ted's data in the coming weeks. Ted ignored her calls as he was on sick leave. The internal auditors investigated and found that Sally had cost the organization over 2.5 million in funding. At the same time, the complaints came from department heads about Ted's redundancy. Someone forwarded Ted an email a couple of months later from the CEO stating, after a brief conversation with Sally, she has decided to look for other opportunities.